Hey, everybody. Welcome to the BRC podcast. I'm your host, Justin Musil. Appreciate you checking us out once again. I am the founder of the Parent Dugout and Justin Musil Baseball. I'm super stoked to talk to Mike Brown today. One of my good buddies and someone that I really respect, has had a great coaching career, has great insight, and is not afraid to share his opinions. And I actually think he's one of the better evaluators in the country as well. So super excited to get to him and talk with him a little bit more. If you have any questions, be sure to throw them in the chat. I'm excited to get to those questions. We'll get to those as we go, but let's bring in Mike Brown here from the University of Utah. What's up, Mike?
Justin, thank you for having me, man. I feel great
Yeah,
being here.
yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. Great to catch up with you. We're going to talk a lot today about the common myths in recruiting, right? There are many of them. We could probably
Plenty
go
of them,
through.
plenty of options.
Yeah, we could probably go through 100 of them, but we're gonna stick to 5 today. But before we get to that, man, so you're on the road right now. You're in Cincy. That's
I'm in
right.
Cincinnati. Yes, sir. Got in last
Nice,
night.
man.
It's a slice of home for me going to University of Kentucky and
Yeah.
hopefully find some good players.
Yeah, I love it, man. Okay, so let's talk about this, man. You have a really, really interesting background. You've been to a lot of places. You've coached at a high level for a long time, but you also played at a high level. And I think, going way back, I mean, you had a good career. So, can you just share with the listeners and the viewers on your background and how you got to this point in your career, man?
Yeah, and fortunately for me, I've played for a lot of great coaches, and I look back and sort of having a different perspective of those guys in my career now is pretty lucky and rewarding. But I grew up in Northern California. I played at Davis High School for Dan Ariola, who was a legendary coach, recently retired.
Yeah.
Went to Cal Poly out of high school, which this is dating myself, but my freshman year at Cal Poly was Larry Lee's first year. So
Wow. Okay.
2003, yeah, it was Coach Price was the head coach who I committed to. Jerry Weinstein was the pitching coach, who's one of the all-time greatest coaches I think
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
But he stayed on, so he was the pitching coach my freshman year. Coach Lee was the head coach, and then I went to a junior college after that, which is becoming more of a common road for a lot of young players in terms of D1 and then kicking back. So I did kick back to junior college and had a great experience and grew up and really learned about myself as a player. And it's kind of at junior college where I realized, like, baseball, I thought I may be able to play in the major leagues naively at that time. But my thoughts of coaching, I kind of lost it. My thoughts for coaching and being around the game, I think, started to grow in junior college. And fortunately got recruited by Gary Henderson, who's my boss now, which is another unique, I think, attribute. Played for him for 2 years at Kentucky. John Cohen was the head coach. He's now the athletic director at Auburn, which again is a funny, twisty, deal. But anyway, played there, kind of realized I was not going to be a major leaguer and had a decision to make and got into coaching after selling copy machines for about a year and a half in Washington, D.C. area. And without getting too much rambling, I realized I needed to be around the game of baseball and help kids and use my experience as a player to maximize young guys' experience. And it's a 2-for-1 for me because I love the game. I love the challenge. I love the preparation. And now where I am, more importantly, and maybe most important, I just love helping guys and ball players and navigating a really murky, polluted road currently, which is fun, if you look at it that way.
Yeah, it's an interesting process right now, man, right? Things in the last 5 years have just changed dramatically with how it's done and just kind of what we're
Justin, sorry to catch up, but 3 years really. This I think is the third summer. The portal has been a real big piece of it for a lot of programs.
Yeah, it's a great point, man. And it's escalating quickly, right? I mean, the changes are it's not just like subtle changes that are dramatic, it's dramatic changes that escalated really fast. And I think that, this is stuff we talk about all the time on the podcast, but we're talking a lot off the podcast, things like this. But I think for coaches, it's just trying to like figure out what does the future look like too, right? So you're trying to adapt, but you're also trying to figure out, is this how it's going to be now? And what is our plan? Because then the field goal post keeps moving on you. So it's a really tough time for you guys. And usually on my end, man, like, because I obviously work with really high end players, but I actually really try to put myself in the coach's shoes a lot because you guys are in such a tough spot, man. Really. I mean, it's like, you're trying to do your best. You're trying to adapt to a changing landscape. and it's just really difficult. Can you talk a little bit about that, Mike, and what that's been like to go through that roller coaster for the last few years?
Yeah, I think the biggest, and again, I think we have our options as coaches, which most of us coaches preach to kids. Hey, man, you have the power to decide, the power of
Yeah,
choice, and whatever you decide is you have to believe in it. And so what I do think the portal is forcing programs to do is really be honest and really reduce the recruiting cycle to, in some cases, a week. And half the time, and this is sloppy and not necessarily by design, but these kids know where they're going before they get in the portal a lot of times. So all of a sudden, those programs recruiting them are going through somebody else. And I'm not saying tampering or it's intentional,
yeah,
but
yeah,
the amount of voices that are influencing these kids, even
yeah,
before the portal opens. I had a friend of mine, he compared it to like NFL free agency, kind of that weird week of tampering where everyone knows is going to go become a free agent. It hasn't, the date hasn't occurred yet. And there's a lot of, okay, this guy's going to be open. This guy's going to be open. So I think that's, the first piece is how strong is your networks? You know
yeah,
what I mean? And how good are your relationships? And I'm learning, how respectful are you to a kid when he tells you he's going to go somewhere else out of high school? The
interesting,
portal
man.
at
Yeah,
this climate is unique
yeah,
because most of the kids, and we don't have many needs this summer. So in terms of our real situation, I mean, man, majority of the kids that I'm connecting with and trying to get out of the portal, I've already known them, and I got
yeah,
their numbers in my phone, and we had a connection, and we had a conversation of him telling me I don't want to go to Utah or Hawaii or wherever I was previously. And that's unique, Justin, because before olden days, you get your shot, and maybe the kid leaves and goes to a JUCO, and then you can recruit him again. But it was almost, you almost didn't want him. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah,
Now it's so common for guys to go to a place and then leave. The negative, I think,
yeah,
I don't know, breeze behind him is
yeah.
less. Now he's just shopping and he's looking for a better opportunity.
Yeah, and it's a sticky, situation a lot of times because you're trying to figure out, on your end, why are you leaving, right? And sometimes it's just because they're looking for a change, and sometimes there's good intentions, but sometimes they're leaving behind maybe some baggage that they left too, and all of that. Maybe it didn't go well, and, they didn't get along with the coaching staff or something, and there's a lot of information that you're trying to gather in a short amount of time. And I was just
Yeah.
having a coach. I had a conversation with a coach yesterday that's at a Power Four school, and he was saying the most challenging part of the process now in the portal is you don't have a lot of time on the makeup side. You're trying to figure out so much information in such a limited amount of time that he said it's like such a volatile thing from year to year because you're doing as much as you can in a short amount of time, but you got to move. And if it's the wrong character for the culture, it can really explode on you. So it's just a tough spot to be in, man. I feel for you guys, but obviously it's just the way it is, and you guys have to make the best of it, right?
Yeah, well, and that's why the relationships in the past come to such value for us. Like, and that's kind of the pitch. Like, hey, man, we're trying to find guys that we've had a connection to, regardless of how small. A couple kids you
Yeah,
talk to 3 or 4 times in high school, and then you don't talk to them for 3 years. But at least when you're rekindling, hey, man, do you remember me? And it's like, oh, of course I do. And that becomes, and obviously in those times when you have more time and due diligence is had a little stronger with the character and the makeup and the competitiveness and the things that are a little more challenging to see when you look at a stat sheet or you watch them on Synergy.
yeah, 100%, man. I mean, relationships in this world are so critical. And this is professional baseball, Major League Baseball, college baseball. So many decisions are made off of relationships, in the trust that they have in different people. I think it's really hard for people on the outside to understand how much of those decisions actually come down to the trusted relationships that people have. It's pretty incredible.
And in our related, Justin, if you say go on this guy, we can check majority of boxes that he's got a good attitude, he's got a motor, he's driven. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
Yep.
that takes time to build, and it
Yeah.
takes reputation and relationships for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I appreciate you saying that, man. So I'm gonna shift here. This is a lot of conversation here.
The myths,
There's so
ready?
many things that we can talk about, man, but we're gonna break it down to five, what I feel like is five of the more common myths that you hear in recruiting. Okay. So I'm gonna just throw one out and then we're gonna discuss it. So we're gonna start with number one. If I'm good enough, coaches will find me. This I have found as a major myth in the process because of the simple common sense pieces around it. And I'm going to throw it to you in a second. The myth in this is there are thousands and thousands of players to look through. And so it's really difficult for coaches to know everybody from every area of the country. And then also, by the way, Canada as well. So it's the US and Canada that a lot of schools are looking at. So you have the portal, you have junior college, you have high school. It's off the charts with the numbers of players that you're trying to sift through for a relatively small staff. So just common sense wise, I have found in my role that this is just nowhere near the truth. But I want to get your thoughts on this one, Mike.
When I think again, I do think that is a myth because at the end of the day, everything you just outlined, if you're from Powell, Wyoming, you're going to have a much more challenging time for the University of Florida, the
Yes.
Mississippi State University, to identify that guy. And Justin, it goes to me. I think about internally, like, how many guys do you have in your network? Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yep.
But we've
Yeah.
had a lot of success of the northern kid. Our best arm, Coulter McAnally, is from Cheyenne, Wyoming. We just got another kid from Gillette, Wyoming, who I think is a great example because he's a very successful track athlete. He played football for a little bit. He played basketball. So his circuit, him with Big Sky, which I think majority of kids in that area would do. And now you can identify those guys because they're going to Arizona. And again, there's a chance to debunk the myth in that situation. But Seth's running track. He's not going. He's the best one on the team by far, and he's not going with those guys. And now the other schools that are recruiting the Arizona circuit aren't able to see him. So I I think that's a big myth in the sense of that's what keeps me driven to some
Yeah.
degree. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like we have a lot of connections with Canadian players and Canadian academies. And to me, it's what about the random kid from Saskatchewan whose family doesn't have the resources to travel around or go to a big academy, and he's pitching for Andrew Albers, who was my teammate, for
Yeah.
the yard goats, and they're not getting the exposure that majority of the
Yeah.
country is.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think it's what keeps us driven as coaches, and I think the more you rely on the kids finding you, the more watered down your club's probably going to be.
Well,
To
and
some
the
degree.
other part, no, there's a reality to that too, man. And I think it's just, it's the thought process that you want to be careful with where you can just kind of sit back in the process and it'll happen. I think that's what that myth leads to is just, look, I've worked with some of the best players in the country where I talk to coaches and they have no idea who they are. So I've literally experienced on my end where they say, I don't know, man, I'm at Ole Miss, and this kid's from California. We weren't digging around all high school spring in California. Like, you know what I mean? So
Sure.
I've had those conversations where there's just a lot going on, right? And when you talk in season, especially, I mean, you're trying to win ball games while all this stuff is going on. So that's another side of it. So that's one myth. I would say the correction of that myth or the overcorrection is you also want to be careful of too, where you don't want to feel like you need to do every single camp and showcase to cover the other side either. There's a balance in there. So just make sure that you're not flipping to the other side thinking that, well, because this is a myth, I need to do everything possible. You want to have a strategy in the process. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and kind
Yeah,
of how people can break this myth a little bit?
totally. I was going to say, alternatively, you don't need to be on the big travel team and the most expensive circuit and all that. And I think what you said first was if you are good enough, meaning if your talent is identified and you feel like you're, a Division I player, or you feel like you're going to play competitive college baseball, then I think you got to reach out, and you do have to connect with someone like yourself, Justin, or put yourself in a situation to reach out to schools and to
Yep.
put it out there. And and I would say, and I don't know if this is commonplace, but I respond better to a kid's email or a coach reaching out to say, hey, come watch the kid play. I know you don't know me. If this is a situation where it's a new connection, like we don't know each other, but the kid's really good. I can speak on behalf of his character, his competitiveness, his makeup, but you got to come watch the skills. Here's a video, short. Is it good enough to come see? And
Yep.
like again, we want to have a niche, and I think we've done a nice job of executing it. But we want the guy from the small town who plays football and baseball and basketball, who knows how to be a teammate, who plays
Yeah.
stickball in the street until the lights go out. Um, we want those guys. And Coach
Yeah.
Henderson, we had a good run in Kentucky of those types of players. James Paxton was a guy who was not a huge recruit. He grew 6 or 4 inches after his freshman year, but he was a guy from West Coast Canada. Gary had a lot of connections with Canadian and coaches and guys from academies, and that's how the Big Maple showed up at Kentucky. I think
Yeah.
overlooked. If and here's the fun thing: if anybody sees James Paxton throw, they're in. I mean, it's not like I don't know if he's good enough for us. It's a
Yep.
6'4" lefty with real stuff, and so I think the skills of that player, let that set them free. And if you're good, you've been told by other guys, in situations who have seen other good players, professional scouts, and you start to check off evaluations from baseball people, then I think reach out. I mean, I've responded to kids on their embarrassing, second, third, fourth email before based on some persistence and based on not this accumulation of their success and their accolades. And I hit 700 and so on and so forth. It's like, hey, I think I can impact the team. This is a short view of my skills. Come see me and I'll prove it.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I respond to best. And most importantly, last thing, if you call me about a kid, and I have a handful of I don't know if it's travel baseball coaches or recruiting guys, or nowadays it becomes agents, and I don't necessarily think about the eval from the agent, but you start to trust those guys, and then we go lay eyes on them.
Yep.
I'm in Cincinnati because somebody really close with the program and with us is like, you got to see this guy. There's a connection to the university. Come watch them, and you guys could, you have an advantage to get them.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you laid that out, man. And I think just finishing this off, you have kind of two separate things here that you're discussing. You have the kid that is maybe in an area that isn't as highly recruited. So you have that kid. But I would also say that sometimes when you're in an area that is extremely deep, if we think of Southern California or areas in Florida, sometimes the depth of that area can also smother you as well.
Yeah.
So it's not always like if you're in a good area, then it's more beneficial, because then the attention sometimes goes to the guys that are going in the top couple rounds of the draft, and that's what the focus is there. And so, yes, if you're going to go in the first round of the draft, you're pretty good. You're talking about the 0.5 percentile here, or even less of, yes, those guys, if you're that good, people will know who you are. That is such a rare, you're not hitting on 99.8% of the rest of the players, right? So I just think it's just important to think about. So let's go to myth 2 here.
Okay.
I hear this a lot. I need to commit early. What are your thoughts when you hear that?
I think that's well, I had a coach tell me, a very successful coach in a Power 4, tell me the fastest way to not go to his school would be to commit early.
I like that, man.
And
like
again,
that.
I don't know. I mean, especially in this climate, I think a lot of schools that are committing young players, there's a little bit of a frivolousness to that approach because there's just not room. And at the end of the day, when you have opportunities to get accomplished guys and you have opportunities to fill your roster with players that have already done what you're looking for them to do, there's going to be collateral damage. And that's the part that scares me. Like our 26 class, we have 4 high school kids. And that's lower, I think, than most years for us, strictly because we anticipated, and we've got a lot of guys coming back. So our portal attack this summer is not as big as it could have potentially been, but we were preparing for older guys coming back because our roster started to reflect that way, and B, we're preparing to get guys that have 250 college at bats, or we were talking this morning as a staff, and we're waiting to hear back from a kid that's got 140 college innings, and that is tough, So again, I think there's situations for it. I think the benefit of committing early is you have time to connect with the staff and continue to build that relationship. Yep. And what my sell would be to a young kid, and again, it's if we're talking about juniors, right? Then hey man, I want you to show up on campus, and the viewers may not understand me, but so we can yell at you and we can coach you and we can get into the player development piece and not have you worried if, basically not have the foundation of trust already laid. So the early commit can create some trust and create a comfort, but in this roster situation, it's just tough. I mean, we don't want collateral damage. We don't want to have to call a kid that's been with us for a couple of years and say, you got to go somewhere else because we can get an older player. That's unfair. So we anticipate the roster in that regard. So I definitely don't think you have to commit early. We may still have a high school kid now
Yep.
for this
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
you know,
I think now more than ever, it's actually this is more of a myth now than ever
I
because
think I agree.
yeah, I think everything is just happening later. You're seeing the transactional year to year focus where it's not so much about 2 years from now. It's a lot of focus on what does the next year look like? And then there's so many changes that I think people are looking for security in that, which I understand. So I agree. It doesn't always mean that you shouldn't commit as a junior or something. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying that that is a myth that you need to do that to be
Correct.
successful in this process.
Correct.
Many kids, many of the highest recruited kids I've ever worked with committed very late. In fact, I say this all the time. I have a handful of guys I worked with in the past that are big leaguers currently that all committed their senior year. So fall or later. Matt Wallner committed in the spring
Oh, he was
of his
good.
senior year, right? Like, yeah,
Did
we've talked. I mean, we can go on and on about this. I could go through so many other big leaguers that your path to get there is just very different. And when your value is highest in the market, that's when you want to really consider what the options are. So that's a good one, man. So that was myth number 2. Let's go to myth number 3. We touched on this a little bit. This is the myth. I need to attend every camp and showcase there is. Basic. This is pretty simple here. Mike, do you want to just touch on this one?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a myth. I think you can water yourself down. One thing that I look for, and especially now with a scrutinized roster, is how much do you enjoy playing? Like how much zest do you have for that day? And the more these kids go to these camps and showcases specifically where it's ground balls, two at you, two six hole, two, it becomes a routine for them and a little more transactional, Justin, and a lot less passionate. And again, I don't think that's necessarily reflecting of who that kid may be, but
Mhm.
it looks that way when we're watching, and it's the only
Yep.
one I'm watching, and he's done 10 in the last 10 days. So, and I don't know. I don't, I think that becomes what a lot of guys are telling families in order to generate
Mhm.
dollars. So
Yeah.
that one's
Yeah.
a tough one.
Look, I'm not against them either. Like there's a balance with it. That's all I'm saying. I don't think
Yes.
you need to attend, you know, I don't mean to just point one out, but I don't think you need to attend 10 different perfect game events to try to bolster your rating. I don't think that makes
I
sense.
don't think
I think it's fine to go to some of those, but I don't think you need to just overkill it is kind of my point. You want to have
yes.
balance in the process. You want to look, I even think some college camps can be really good, Mike. Like if you're trying to get eyes on a guy and you really love a guy and you're talking to me, you're saying, Justin, I love it, man. Like I think this could be a fit. Can he make it here? I think it can be extremely valuable, but there's strategy behind it. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on that. I'm not against those at all. I think they're very important actually. It's just knowing how to strategize in that process. Do you want to touch on that a little
Right.
bit?
Yeah, and I would encourage guys to come to the school's camp. And that's, it's not a, generally speaking, it's not a moneymaker. The biggest advantage I think in camps is we can coach them. And the way we orchestrate our camps is we're teaching a dumbified system of what we do. You know what I mean?
Yep.
We're degrading it in
Yeah.
terms of simplified in time. And so it's fun because we can have the takeaway of, can this guy make an adjustment? Can
Yep.
this guy do the same drills that our guys are doing and struggle, understand what the struggles, the root of them are, and adjust?
Yep.
And you can't do that in the showcase. So
Yeah.
I would conserve resources and identify schools, and this can go back to sort of the communicating with schools. The guy who's in Phoenix, and Phoenix kids are that's a sweet spot for us recruiting wise. It's an easy flight, and it's like, hey man, I've seen you, I get it. You're in an area where you got every high school has got 4 or 5 committed Division I players. Come to our camp. And
Yeah.
I'm saying that because in Phoenix, to your point, some guys that are going to be Division I players, they're playing JV as sophomores.
Yes.
They're
Yep.
not
Yep.
starting on varsity because the guy ahead of them is going to Louisville.
Yep.
And I think that doesn't discourage us, but yeah, we would love to see that guy off the high school scene and not in a pinch hitter role as a sophomore and have him come out and run around.
Yep.
And so I agree with you. I think there's a lot of value, and you can incorporate that prior to their junior year, which I do think creates relationships and gets I don't know, gets the program out there a little earlier than legally.
Yeah, I like that a lot, man. And I would even say it's super helpful to have someone around you that is really good at evaluating so they can also help you identify if those places might be a good fit or not. And I think that is a missing link with a lot of kids in today's game where they maybe don't have someone that can guide them with, hey, you're more of a Division 3 guy, so going to Vanderbilt's camp is probably not super effective from a recruiting standpoint. If you're going to a camp to learn and things, that's different. But I think
Andy's
it's
camps are incredible.
yeah,
Coach Court,
yeah,
those, yeah. But yes,
yeah.
exactly,
My
Justin.
my point is that your purpose for going should then be to develop and learn and all that, which I'm totally good with because those are amazing camps. There are other reasons why you would go to a camp.
Correct.
Sometimes
Which
it's
is
just about
lost.
getting better, right?
Yeah, it's lost. And our goal at camp is, hey man, we want you guys a defensive takeaway, an offensive takeaway, a base running takeaway that you guys can implement and this is crazy, but use to be a better baseball player.
Yeah.
I also think
Right.
that is lost in these skill evaluation showcases because I don't know, when you were playing, it was about getting better. And I would go to my little league coach was Dan Feinstein. He's the assistant general manager for the Oakland A's. And I remember tidbits of him
Oh, no
coaching.
way, man. That was your little league
Unbelievable.
coach?
Yeah. Unbelievable. That's another one. I should have started with that. But he
That's
was
a
my
great
little league
story,
coach.
man. I know
And
Dan. Yeah.
you know Dan Finey? He
Well,
remembers
I
me.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I've talked to him before. Yeah.
He told me, and this is a little uncomfortable for me, but he told me that little league year I was on the A's, he traded for me from the Twins. It kind of helped getting his brain around him being a general manager. True. And he was with the Rays for a while. When I was at
Yeah.
Mississippi State, we
Yeah.
reconnected and he was working for the Rays. And I
Yeah.
reached out to him and he's like, "Does your family still live on Drexel Drive?" And I'm
Wow.
like, "Damn, yeah, they do."
Wow.
So
Crazy,
yeah.
man.
Um,
That's great. That's a
so,
great story. He traded
but
for you.
traded for me, got me. Man, we had a good year. But I just think again, and I kind of tailed off there, but getting better at baseball, if you're passionate about it, is all that matters. I think to your point, when we get kids at camp, there is a underlying elephant in the room of like, hey, are you going to recruit me? Like I came to camp like now, and we
Yeah.
try to be very honest. And hey, man, we even help guys get to junior colleges or lesser levels if that's where they fit. And I hate putting bumpers on kids, but I mean, you watch
Yeah.
a kid throw one time and you're like, it's going to be really hard for that kid to play in the Big 12
Yep.
or in the Big
100%, man.
West or whatever. And I
Yep.
think baseball is so great because if you love to play, you can play. And it could be an NAIA, it can be D1, D2, D3, but the game is there for you to get after it.
Yeah, awesome stuff, man. I'm gonna actually go to the next one here, and then we're gonna get to some questions that people have thrown in here. I want to get to the next one because you just hit on it. If I'm not playing D1, it's not good baseball. Get,
It's
I'll let you
frustrating.
roll on that one, Mike. I'll let you
Well,
roll.
I hate that because it's false. I mean, baseball is messed up at every level, and I would encourage guys to watch professional baseball. I try to watch little bits and pieces every night, and if the guys are making mistakes that they make at our level, at the D2 level, at the D3 level. So again, I think baseball is hard enough, and I hate that for kids because it's a false sense of reality, and there's an arrogance to that almost is the opposite of every great baseball player. And I think, Justin, you know this, but baseball players are confident and there's a fine line of cockiness and arrogance. But when you talk to a retired big leaguer, he's going to tell you that he wasn't very good.
Yep.
It's like, dude, you hit
Yep.
320 for 11 years in the big leagues. But the game demands a really strong humbleness. And
Yeah.
so I just hate that because I'm like, what are you not good enough to, you're too good to play D2. And so those people haven't watched Division 2 baseball and they haven't
Yeah.
watched Division 3 baseball. They haven't watched a high level of NAIA baseball. I feel like there's a little bit of that in the Southeastern Conference. And I played in the league and I've worked in the league for a couple of different programs. And so, but man, I watched a kid throw 16 balls in a row at Texas A&M.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Unfortunately, it was our team, and they were yelling out the number of balls. But like, man, I've bonehead mistakes, guys missing routine plays and throwing to the wrong bases and swinging at balls in the dirt. So the game to me is the hardest, critic, and I hate that because again, it's unfair to the game, in my opinion.
100%, man. I mean, yeah. I mean, you can talk about the Tampas of the world and how good they are. I mean, they go in and win series against some Division 1, schools. So I mean, there has never been more talent across all college baseball than today, ever. It is so good across the board. If you go watch a Division 3 World Series, you're going to see players that you'd say, man, I can identify 10 guys here that could impact a Division One roster. It's because
Correct.
the talent is just so loaded across the board right now. So that's a clear myth. I want to get to a question. So Adam here says, what's the most memorable recruit? So we're gonna pause here on the myths for a second, Mike. What's the most memorable recruiting call you've ever had? Let's get to that one.
Whoa, that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, you've had how many thousand? 10,
Yeah,
10 plus
I mean,
thousand probably?
I mean, I would say a memorable recruiting call is not getting a guy, building a relationship with him, feeling a connection to the kid, and then him going somewhere else, and then almost like, and again, not to be weird about it, but setting the bar in terms of, okay, this is how I really liked how that program communicated. I liked what they did. Unfortunately, they choose somewhere else, and then they reach back out because they never got what they felt like they could get from your program. Does that make sense? So,
Yep.
so in real time right now, we've got kids that now are deciding to come back to Utah, whereas
Yeah.
before they weren't going to. So, and then this
Yep.
one's a little bit contradictory, but Austin Rowland was one of my favorite players. He left. He was an all league player, and I recruited him as a young kid. He went to LSU. He gets in the portal from LSU, and like we pretty much got back to where we left off. So I would say
Okay.
him coming to Utah was a very memorable one, and there's a lot. Um, but when they say yes, usually triggers a memorable call, and I say maybe you don't know how memorable the call is until the season ends and
Yeah.
he was successful.
Right. Right.
I don't know how good my guys are until they're parents, but I
Right.
do. Anytime you build a relationship with a kid, whether he tells you he wants to go to you in that moment or he has to have an adult decision and go somewhere else and then comes back, I think those are rewarding for me.
Yeah, great answer, man. I love that. So I'm gonna get to a couple others here while we're going through it. So, what's the let's get to what's the one thing that parents do that unintentionally hurts their son's recruiting process?
Well, I think they deny, I think hypocrisy becomes one where the parent is vocal and adamant that they're not involved. Hey, I want to let my son make decisions. And there's very strong innuendos of actually what the parent wants the son to decide. I think that becomes the biggest challenge. And again, that is not local to high school kids. In
Yeah.
fact, it almost gets more blatant when the kid is older. Hey, we're letting him decide, but we're going to come on the recruiting trip and we're going to be ultra involved in every conversation. And meanwhile, the kid's 22 years old.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I think parents are involved. I mean, we embrace the parents and we want to educate them and we want to eliminate the echoing and the telephone of, hey, tell your parents this. I've learned, let's just talk.
Yep.
But I also want the kid to make the decisions that he feels are right for him. So I would just say that when the parents become a problem, I feel myself educating the kid on it's his life, it's his career. He needs to do what he wants to do. And if that differentiates from your parents' opinion or thoughts, then they need to get together and have a
Mm.
conversation.
I like that,
Um,
man. Yep.
Unfortunately, the conversation usually happens after maybe the wrong decision in the kid's
Yeah.
mind has been made. So try to get
Yeah.
that out in the front end and nip it in the bud before it resurfaces.
Yeah, great question there, Royce. And one of the things I'll add into that is I think it's really important for the parents in the process to know that they have an important role. So, like, they should be like, it's okay to be involved. I get that a lot too. Like, we just want to step back and not, and it's like, no, it's okay to have your own thoughts and have, help. Like, there's
Yes.
more than enough to show that that's okay. I think where I see it, where you have to be careful is just neither the mom nor the dad should be the front person. Like,
Yeah.
let the player be the front person. Let them be the front man in it. And when you go on a visit, let them be the front man. Like, you're still in the background. It's okay being the bassist, right? Like, let them be the lead singer. And
When
that's
observe,
kind of the comparison I use.
evaluate, observe. We find it a
Yeah.
lot of parents want to express the other love that their kids are getting, and there's a lot of name dropping, and it's like, hey, this is all good, but we're talking about
Yes.
other
Yep.
stuff. So yeah, I mean, parents are involved, and we want parents to say go to Utah. But at the same token, I do think there becomes a blindedness where the hypocrisy can grow, and now it's not about, and it's all the cliches that you educate them
Yeah.
on, Justin. But
Yeah.
it's not about the parent. in terms of they're not playing. They're
Yeah.
supportive, they're transporting, in the corner, they're involved, they're financial. But at the end of the day, the kid's the one that's got to show up on time to
Yep.
practice at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, and I would as kind of finishing this part off, because this is such a great point here. I'm glad that Royce brought this up. So I think what you want to do also is just know that um, this is in general what I would say. The more humble the parents and the family are, the better off you are. So if you think you're going into like leverage things or you want to leverage things into conversation, coaches are really good at this, and they don't want to hear any of that. The thing that I hear the most is, man, I love how humble they were. I
Yes.
love I love how down to earth they were. I love
More
that they, yeah, in general, if you do that as a family, it's going to go over very, very well versus
it's
the other
rare.
side. Yeah, you want to talk a little bit about that, man? We'll finish this question off because it's such a good question. But
Baseball's a humble game, and I mean, there's a great saying, which if you're not humbled by baseball, you will be soon. And I think that is directly reflected by the families. And again, most of the better players that I've come across, Jake Mangum's not going to tell you how good he is. I mean, he might on the field and in the dugout in the heat of battle, but when he's talking to a 10-year-old kid, he's going to tell him how often he gets out and, he needs to get better and improve. So
yeah,
I think that can translate to the family. And when the dad and mom are telling the kid how good he is, that to me, that's scary, man, because, and they're going to support. And that my mom is my biggest fan, but she's not coddling and unrealistic and all that. I'm her boy, and I get that piece. But when it becomes statistical and he does never messes up, and there's that loss of, hey, my boy needs to get better in life and
yeah,
baseball and
yeah,
relationships and communicating, it becomes tainted. And I think
yeah,
that's such a good point, Justin, because when we reflect on a family, it's like, man, they were so normal and loving and supportive of their kid. And I'm a parent. I got 2 daughters, and I think they're really, really great at dancing. And I may say, "Hey, you're a little," but that's okay, and that's a part of it. But when it gets over the top and it becomes name dropping and stat dropping and Team USA and, oh, we didn't do that because of a political, it's like, to your point, nobody cares. Well, you're already
yeah.
here. That's what I try to remind the kids. Hey, man, you're here. You're in the
Right.
chair. We're talking about bringing you onto the team. You don't need to do anything else. In fact, you need to
Yeah.
be yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And I think parents support, love on, care for, all that, like encourage them. Like you know this, I have two daughters as well, two little daughters. And of course, when I'm within my walls, I want them to believe in themselves. I want to give them encouragement. I want to pour that on them. I want them to feel like, hey, you can be an Olympic gymnast if like maybe, you're going to have to work really hard. It's very hard, but like go after, right? Like that's obviously what you should do. So I'm not saying tear them down, but when you get in front of the coaches and you're doing a visit, the most humble people typically come off the best. And every coach wants a player that wants to come in and get better and know that they have things that they need to work on. That's all I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
just being realistic, it's okay, like, to point out some weaknesses, no problem, because coaches already know what those are. We wanna work on those things. Self-awareness is amazing when you can share things about yourself that you need to work on. There's that can be impressive to coaches that you're so aware of what you're trying to accomplish. Those are just some pieces to that. Royce, awesome question. I wanna get to Dom's question here. I'm gonna go back on it. So, Adam, if you wanna throw up what's the biggest myth parents believe about the recruiting timeline? When should families really start the process? Great question, Dom.
Yeah. Well, I would say how whenever it doesn't take away from the process of being a better baseball player and a more aware player and a more understanding of the challenges of the games. But I mean, I think that naturally sort of comes to fruition. I mean, these guys are in such a competitive youth programming that colleges start to, in some cases, I would think colleges will start to trigger the recruiting process.
Yep.
I think if it becomes this, I need to start the recruiting process to get recruited, and I've never heard from a college coach. None of the coaches around you have really talked about getting to the next level. Then I think it's still time to focus on improvement and getting after it, and maybe most importantly, and again in sarcasm, like enjoy the game of baseball. Like I tell
Yeah.
kids, And advice to, younger brothers on guys on our team. I think of Cameron Lemieux. Like, you need to just play and enjoy and love it
Yeah.
and fine tune your skills. And then as you get into your junior, okay, the recruiting conversations can become a little distracting all of a sudden as a senior. And I'm like, if you're not getting recruited by NCAA programs and you really love it and you're still focusing on getting better, then start wrapping your mind around a junior college,
Yep.
and continue to have an eye on the pro. Now it should be easier to work. There should be zero, achievement lacking. Like, I hate, and I don't understand it, but I'm going to a JUCO. Parents will view that as a downgrade, which is incredibly disrespectful and not true. I
Right.
mean,
Yep.
we've found it where we'll bring a kid in when we were into the 9, 10 high school kid age or high school numbers, right?
Yep.
They would get back to a JUCO and they would have a hard time playing.
Yeah.
It's like, man, this
Yeah.
guy was complaining about playing time for us in the Pac-12 at that time, and now he's going to junior college, and he's coming off the bench in a
Yeah.
pinch hitter role. And so anyway,
Yeah.
I do think the game will iron that out. That's not an easy way out answer trying to be, but let the game set you free, man. Keep playing, keep getting better. If people take notice, they take notice. If they don't, I feel like baseball is such a beautiful thing where junior college is always there, and the JUCO
Yeah.
coaches want the guys that want to play in its purest
Yeah.
form. And you might
Love that,
not play,
man.
but you'll be
Yep.
on the team and you can continue to try to make this thing a little easier for you because it's hard.
I love it, man. Such good information there, Mike. I appreciate the thoughts on that. And Dom, I would add into this that when you talk about the timeline, recruiting timeline, when you enter high school, you should, if you want to play college baseball, you should have some thought around what the plan is.
That's
But there's two, Mike, I always preach this to my guys. There's two pieces to the process that a lot of people miss. One is development phase, two is the active recruiting phase. And at some point they flow over. So just for parents out there, just so you know, that part of the recruiting process can actually be just pushing some chips in to train and develop and get better too. There's two, because without the first
oh,
part, you don't get to the second part.
well, and
So
what's the point? The second part is caused by the first part, and that's what exactly guys lose sight of that process, waters down their game, and they're trying to get recruited to play at a high
yeah,
level. It's
yeah,
insanity.
right. It's knowing when to go is also really important. Like if you're going to a camp, for example, as we touched on, to learn and get better, I'm 100% okay with that. But if you're going to camps at 14 years old, for example, when you're 120 pounds to get recruited, that's not going to work. It doesn't do you any good. So those are situations where I would say, hey, the timeline starts. So to me, when you hit high school, that's like your timeline now.
Yeah,
You have
I agree.
you have your freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, and that's your timeline. Within those 4 years, you have to figure out how you want to weave that and how you want to strategize with that. Just some
Yeah.
thoughts there. Great question though, Dom. I appreciate the question. Let's get to Melanie's and we'll get back to the myths. If you could give every baseball dad one piece of advice, what would it be?
um, and I don't know how direct this is. I've experienced this enough, I think, to answer this question, but just take your own career out of the equation. And I would say every, one constructive adjustment to two or three compliments. And I think a lot of times it's backwards for some dads. I think in Hawaii was very common, but they become too critical. And there's no celebration of hustle, or
Yeah.
there's no celebration of attitude or sportsmanship. Um, and so I think of this, and I thought of this a second ago. Like, my daughter played basketball, and she's a really good defender, and she's 8, so it's kind of weird, but she's a lockdown defender. But when she gets on the bench, she, messes around with her friends and doesn't watch the game. And so I'm on the sidelines yelling at her to watch the game. Do you know what I'm saying? So I do think,
Yeah.
I think dads have the ability to help their kids get better, and a lot of times they don't take advantage of it. Hey, man, be more engaged in the dugout. Something that really influences the things that player can control. Because what I've noticed, the dads are result based, just like most of us are, right? And hey, you didn't get any hits, so now I'm pissed. You made an error, so now I'm mad. And there's really, hey, why didn't you come get that ball and then retreat because the hop needed a little more space, or whatever the baseball play was. It becomes too mythological almost. You either did a good job or you did a bad job, and I don't think that's fair to the player.
I
And
love
hopefully
that,
not
man.
happening in every
Yeah.
family.
I love that. Melanie, great question there. And I want to add to this because I want to give my dad a shout out here. My dad coached me almost my whole life. And he always asked me at the end of every game, his first question was, "Did you have fun?"
Yeah.
That was it. That was his question. And he always knew if I lost, I probably didn't have as much fun as if I won. But that was his first lead-in question, Mike. And I think we kind of lose perspective on that too, where we're playing a game to have fun. We're supposed to enjoy it. Now, were there other conversations after that? Sure. But he let me lead it, but it was always about the enjoyment of the game first. And if he didn't see me enjoying the game, that's what he was concerned about. Like, "Hey, have some fun." Like,
That's
always that conversation, "Let's have fun, guys. Let's have fun," right? Pumping that in there because number 1, it makes you play loose, that. If you're having fun, you're enjoying it, you play loose, you play better. It gives you a little bit of an edge when you're having fun because you're enjoying being on the
trying to
field.
win the game. Yeah.
Yeah, but I agree with you. The correction stuff is also really big, man. I just wanted to give my dad a shout on that because it's something that I didn't really see until later on in life when I was in college, and it was like, "Man, I want my dad here today." I want my
Yeah.
dad here telling me just these basic reminders of these simple things where it's like, "Oh, man, I just need to go back to some of the basics of what I'm trying to do on this field." So and you probably have many stories like that too, Mike.
100%. And that the essence of the game is fun, and everything you just said is our goal is to have those attributes and to play loose and to play with communication and play fearless. And if you're not having fun, I mean, the minute you kick a ball, theoretically, you're not really enjoying it, right? And all those things go away. No communication, no body language, no presence, no enjoyment. So we talk a lot about that because at the end of the day, it's such a short window. And
Yeah.
I've learned it from the coaching perspective. It was easy for me to have fun on the field as a player. And maybe not in this exact dictionary definition of fun, but I enjoyed the game in its own purity and failures and all that. But as a coach, if I'm not having fun, I'm not as good as a coach. And I think
Yes.
that's the same. It's a very close to apples comparison as a player and a coach. Is we got to be loose, we got to have fun, and most importantly, we have to be prepared.
Yep.
And I think when the player is prepared, he's able to have a little bit more enjoyment in terms of a
100
college our perspective.
100%, man. 100%. I appreciate your insight on that. Great questions there. I'm going to get back to the myths. So we're going to finish up here, and then I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at you really fast to get you out of here because you got a game to get to,
I
man.
got a game,
Yeah.
145 game.
Yeah. All right. All right. So you're myth number 5. So we'll wrap this part of the conversation up. So thanks everybody for the questions. Those were awesome. Myth number 5. I just want to commit so I can relax. Right? That's the thought. There's a thought around that of just like it takes pressure off, and I can kind of get it to some extent. But can you just touch on that a little bit, Mike, on why that is not
That's,
accurate to think
that's
that way?
detrimental. And I think that, sorry, there's a lawnmower next to my hotel, but I think that is very similar to players losing a little bit of an edge to embrace the recruiting process. The second piece, that, as you described, Justin, and all of a sudden now their focus is not the game, not enjoyment, not getting
Yeah.
better. It's I just want to commit and put all this stuff behind me. And I understand that angle when guys are got calls from guys like me every night and being sold and persuade and all that. So I do get that. But I also, again, I just think the game needs to be more enjoyable for them, and the more they can focus on themselves and getting better and having a good time. I don't
Yeah.
know. I think the less that drop off moment of I'm committed, I'm good, I'm satisfied. I think the less that happens.
Yeah, I love it, man. I think it's very simple on this one. When you commit, that's great, good for you, but the work has to go to another level, in my opinion. Like you're trying to now the motivation intrinsically needs to go to, all right, now I need to be ready when I'm there because I want to start, I want to play, I want to get some time. And to let the gas off the pedal is not the way to do it. So just being careful on that. I do hear it a little bit sometimes, not necessarily from my guys, but just in general, where it's like the thought of like, well, once you commit, you can relax a little bit. That's really not
Well,
what you should be thinking about.
what you're describing, Justin, is the mindset of a champion, right? And we have a kid named Jack Cleveno. He's from Arlington High School, which is in Riverside, California, which is a great place. And I remember he was committed to us at Hawaii. And then I got the job at Utah, and he kind of he stayed committed to Hawaii because that's the type of kid he is. And then all of a sudden he becomes available and we recruit him again. I vividly remember this. I was in the Bay Area. We were playing San Jose State, and he accepted the offer. And I'm like, congratulations, this is great. And Jack is like, man, now I got to get to work. And
I
I'll
love it.
never forget it because it was so uncommon. I mean, a lot of these guys are having commitment parties and Jack and his dad's the head coach of Arlington High School, Tim, who's a fantastic, got 400 plus wins. But Jack's mentality is I got to get to work. And we signed that kid. He's about 5'6". He's a right-handed hitter. He's a defensive specialist. And he's catching on the weekends for the Utah Utes in the Big 12 last year. Some weekends, 2 out of the 3 games.
Amazing.
And
man.
to me, that triggers. It was all started when I was literally standing in the ocean, and it's like, man, this guy's a winner, and he's never looked back. So I think that's the mindset of a champion.
Love that, Mike. Appreciate you sharing that story. That's a good one, man. So I think as we kind of finish up these myths, I want to go to the kitchen sink here, but just so everybody knows, there are many things that are, I would call myths in the process that you have to really be careful of, and make sure that you're understanding how the process actually works and understanding it really well. So appreciate you going through that, but I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at you now, buddy. These are just questions that are totally random. I want quick answers to get you out of here. So when on the road and in need of food, man, what's your go-to? What's your go-to food, bud?
Well, cashews if it's quick and easy and not trying to eat a bunch of candy. But I do like, this is not a right answer, but I'm really into chewy Tic Tacs as a candy treat on the road. They're amazing. A little overpriced, but I try to eat good. I try to find local pizza parlors like late night after, try to buy fast food and do like a local place where they make their own crust.
I like it, man. That sounds great. All right, so let's go to number 2. If you weren't a baseball coach, what would you want to do for your career?
Well, I don't think selling copiers would be it. I did that I would like, this is weird. I've been made fun of. I would want to be a farmer.
Oh, I love it, man. There we go.
My brother tells me he's in an industry where he knows this, but he's never met a poor farmer. And I would just love to tend to the land and be done by 1 o'clock.
That's awesome, man. I like that answer. I can meet you on that one. So let's go to the third one here. If you could vacation anywhere in the world next week, where are you going, man?
Well, there's a lot of great places, but I'm going back to Honolulu and I'm seeing my neighbor Terry and all my boys on the island.
There we go, man. That's a cool place, man. I mean, I'm glad that you got to. I've never been there, but I know that it's an amazing place. So it's makes sense that you'd want to go back there. All right, last one, buddy. What's your favorite youth or high school baseball moment in your life?
Whoa. Well, I'm gonna choose this one. I'm gonna stay away from touchdowns, although I could ramble on about football for a while. But I tell players this, and I don't know if this is good or bad. But I rarely talk about myself as a player. But when I was a sophomore in high school, it's the section championships in California. The bases are loaded, and a passed ball goes by where everyone moves up, right? So now it's second and third. There were 2 outs, which I do remind our players about that. But I hit a home run. And I'm not supposed to hit a home run. It was a big right center, kind of late on a fastball, hit it out. And as I stepped on home plate, I looked at the pitcher and said, if you wouldn't have thrown a passed ball, I would have hit a grand slam. And I think I used some different choice words. But yeah, and I don't know why I did that. It was embarrassing. We won the section title and I have a ring and all that, but I literally remember like, you messed up my opportunity for a granny pump.
That's great.
So I don't know if that's a proud moment, but it was funny. Again, it was the first championship my high school had won, and it was a big deal in our town. And I was a sophomore. I hit in the 9 hole for the first half of the year, and then as we got closer, I jumped to the 2 hole. So I'm also proud about that.
That's awesome, man. Great story there. I love the chirping. It's those are always
I don't know.
great.
I'm like, did I really do that? But I did that, and my dad heard me, and he's like, "Did you tell the pitcher?" So that did happen.
That's so good, buddy. I appreciate you, man. We're gonna wrap up here. I thank you for taking the time. I appreciate your friendship. Appreciate you as a human, man. And we'll obviously talk soon, buddy. And thanks for taking the time to come on the podcast, bud.
Likewise, Justin. Thanks for having me, man. I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah, you bet, buddy. Go have a good day, man. Go see some ball games. All right. Appreciate you, bud. All right.
Thank
See you
you.
later. So for everybody else watching, listening, join our growing community today. The Parent Dugout, Dirt from the Dugout Live, which is an awesome show. You get live access to the best in baseball. Dustin Pedroia, Theo Epstein, Roger Clemens have been on. We have a bunch of awesome guests coming up. Baseball Recruiting Confidential, this show. Ask Justin Ravi anything. You can directly access us for any questions that you have. Clubhouse Conversations, where you engage with other parents on their journey and learn from the community, and videos and written content from the best in baseball. So go ahead and join us. Appreciate you listening to the podcast.